Shall we sit? Let's sit. All right. So, welcome, all of you. Welcome to my office. I'm so glad you popped in. This is a very, very important topic. And Linda, let me begin with you. I mean, obviously, as a non-executive director at Nedbank, what does it mean, that transformation landscape in South Africa, but particularly in Nedbank? What does it mean for you?
Okay. Thank you, Leanne, and good afternoon to everybody. It's so great to be here. It's a topic I'm passionate about. Please, if I do get excited, just understand. Yeah. Transformation is such a critical aspect, especially in the South African landscape. And allow me to share my observations in terms of how organizations as well as broader South African platform has actually received transformation. I have observed organizations treating transformation as a compliance measure, missing out on the opportunities that actually accrue from a transformed state when an organization is in a transformed state. I have also observed organizations actually weaving and integrating transformation as an underpin when it comes to company strategy, when it comes to evaluation of executive performance, when it comes to being a platform of building company culture, as well as brand essence, as well as brand presence. And most importantly, I have also observed transformation being used as a license to serve. Yeah. And I think this is where transformation unlocks value, is when it's actually being used to create relevance when it comes to serving communities, when it comes to offer innovation as well as products and services to a community. In other instances, Leanne, I have also observed transformation being used in its own right as a non-financial performance modifier to assess executives. There has also been instances where transformation, and this actually is very close to my heart, is immaculately used by executives implementing it to also promote much needed trajectory with regards to their own careers. I've seen these senior managers actually using transformation in enhancing their profiles within their companies, earning respect amongst their peers, and also standing out from the rest. And I've got to say this is exactly what I did as a young banker at Standard Bank. Because I was sitting and I was saying, what if I actually gave myself a title of being a transformation champion? And that was it. I actually took on transformation initiative. Before I knew it, I was in front of the CEO, and I'm thinking, there's a time to this thing. It actually opens doors. So if we can actually look at transformation as having avenues to actually provide some degree of significance, be it at a personal career development level, or be it for a broader entity as a whole, Let me stop there.
Yeah, amazing. I love that. Your passion transcends. You're one of those individuals that it doesn't matter what position you're in. You are doomed to move into the higher echelons because of your passion. It just shines through, and transformation is that passion. So love listening to it. It's so important. But Bonang, I'm going to come to you now, but I'm going to start with the ladies first. Sibongile, I want to ask you, I don't want to get into stats because, we could sit and look at, the theories and how it looks on paper and how we've been doing. But, can we talk to actual transformation progress? How are we looking? How are things going?
Thank you so much, Leanne. It's such a nice...
Lovely opening, isn't it?
Very
Love
nice
it.
opening
Love
there.
it.
Yeah, we're not doing so well, but also not doing too badly. I think it's a balance because, yes, from a stats perspective, you are saying we don't want to go there. Statistically, it tells us, stats tell us that especially at top leadership positions, we are really lagging behind.
Okay.
As a country, but also globally. We're not doing so well as we should be doing. For instance, a simple report from Employment Equity Commission will tell you how we are doing and how slow the progress has been over the past 30 years. We could be doing better. But I think the real work that we are not drilling in so much on is the lived experiences. Once individuals are in the positions, because from a compliance perspective, companies have no choice. They have to bring some of us on board, women and black people in particular. But the lived experience is once you are there, because it's compliance. And we're not doing a lot of work in unpacking that and create the vocabulary that we need. Because at this point, I think in our journey of learning about how do we get transformation right, we need to first define the different experiences that people are going through. So that when we see it, then we know what it is and we can call it what it is. It's very difficult when you're going through an experience, but you don't have the words for it. I always go back to my first encounter with transformation as a student at the University of Pretoria. Being elected into a very prestigious position at the university as a student leader amongst a group of white students. At the time, the institution was going through transformation, and they needed to have black representation in that student body. And I remember going through experiences that I didn't know what I was going through, but all I knew was that I was suffocating. It felt like I was drowning. And until I went through the assistance I needed to then come up with the words that this is what is happening. You are in a space where rightfully you should be there and you should be participating, contributing, but somehow, because Afrikaans was being spoken in meetings, so you can't participate. So it feels like you are suffocating because you don't have the words, you don't know what's happening, but you are being excluded. That was the word. You're being excluded. And until we formulate the vocabulary that is needed for us to then start identifying these experiences that a lot of people who are beneficiaries of the transformation policies that we are putting in place, the sooner we'll be able to get there. The recent one is, when we look at the career growth of women in particular at senior level, what trends are showing us is that as much as women go into these positions, they also leave, and they silently leave. And the reasons that for leaving are often, someone would say, I just need to go back home and take care of my family. Yeah. I'm having a young child that I need to look after. The reasons that are often given, they seem noble, but actually people are withdrawing, women in particular, are withdrawing from these positions. And I'm glad that now we're starting to see these behaviors being analyzed appropriately and being given terms. Like now there's the new term of the great breakup, where women are saying, I worked hard to get into this position, but getting there, being in that position it feels, it's suffocating because one, you don't have the balance that you need, or the support that you need in order for you to balance their family life. Two, there's this passive aggression that women in leadership have to deal with and contend with. And at some point they decide, you know what, I'm checking out, I don't need this. But because we now have the vocabulary, we know what it is. It's the great breakup, and we know what it looks like. We know what happens before it can happen. Then we can deal with it. Yeah. So that's where we are, I think, now in our journey of transformation.
Great, excellent. Thank you so much. You know, as you were speaking, I saw a story jumping up, and I don't know which news service it was on or where I saw it. I see too much. But I think it was even in Parliament that they were complaining about the fact that, you know, translation is only in English and Afrikaans. Yeah. Is this normal? Did anyone else see that story? I don't know. I've also always wondered why when we buy medicines, that there's only directions for use in English and in Afrikaans. I don't. 30 years into democracy? I don't know, guys. I don't know. But that's just me. These are questions I ask myself. Bonang, you've heard what the ladies have had to say. I know you want to respond, and I know you've got so much in your mind. But I suppose it also is very important to ask the question, because some may be asking it, why is it important for transformation? Why should it even still be a thing 30 years into democracy? Aren't we just going to carry on doing what we do? Please, go for it. It's on. Is it good? Okay.
No. Let's bring another one.
Okay. Here we go. Thank you. Thank you. Bonang, over to you.
So if wealth is the inevitable outcome of both hard work and enterprise, then every woman in Africa should be a dollar billionaire.
Yeah.
30 years, we shouldn't be talking about empowerment, let alone transformation. We should be demonstrating strides into transformation. And the way I think about it, it's called the political economy because politics have a disproportionate influence in the economy, and therefore what we do. But it's actually not true because 2010, the private sector employed 16.5 million people. Government, in all three spheres, 2.3 million people. So if the private sector is transformed, South Africa will be transformed.
Yeah.
The figures today is 13.5 million people and 1.3 million people. All 1.3 million are on gems. The others are probably on discovery. But at the heart of it, we should be saying, instead of talking about platitudes around transformation in the private sector, because that's where 2/3 of the economic activity happens. The 1/3 happens in the public sector. Is to say, CEOs should not be lecturing us on gender equality and pay parity when they've got the positional power. They must go to HR on Monday and say, print me the spreadsheet of how we pay women compared to men for work of equal value.
Absolutely.
And then put a plan for their board's approval, even if it takes them 100 years. At least you have a plan. At the moment, there is no plan. You'd think that 30 years into democracy, that every white male CEO would be saying, I want my replacement to be an African woman and have a plan. And yet they're still handing over to other white males to show that it's nice to talk, but it's not embedded in their heart. Imagine if business paid small and medium enterprises in 30 days.
Imagine.
Yeah.
Because cash flow to SMEs is the difference between life and death.
It is.
If they pay them in 7 days, Of course, they've lost the interest they could have earned in 30 days. But they can claim the BE points from Ravi Naidu's YES program, and those points are more than the interest they could have earned. If you belong to YES and you've got 89 out of 109 BE points, you are on level 2 already. Just by subscribing to YES, you jump up one level. So it's manifestly in the interest of these companies to effect transformation. Imagine if this business, instead of really talking about these big words, they just delivered gender justice.
Yeah.
62 million South Africans, 51% of them are women. And yet women's representation in positions of leadership is 20%. Yeah. African women, 4%. That's not sustainable.
No.
Got because we like women, I do. But because it's not sustainable that 8.3% occupies 67% of positions of leadership. That's the C-suite I'm talking about. Our forebears went to CODESA 1, which collapsed, and then CODESA 2, not so much looking at what is it that they can get out of it, but prepared to give up something. Are we prepared as men to kick down the corporate doors to let in more women so that the world becomes a better place? Especially because history is replete with examples that those companies led by women are more profitable. They command higher multiples upon exit. Are best companies to work for, but they're also more joyful.
Yeah.
Especially because we know, science tells us, that when you put a smartphone in the hands of women, not only does the education and nutrition of their own children improve, but that of the society and the community from which they come. And COVID-19 was a wonderful metaphor for business. Because after 198 countries that were both infected and affected by this virus, 8 of them dealt better with the COVID than all the others. And all 8 had women as head of state.
Yeah. Bonang, you speak such truth. And it is what, men are scared to give up their position. I mean, I just look, and I'm going to give you the most uneducated view of the US elections. You look at Joe Biden, you look at a man who can barely get up the stairs. I mean, look, I can't get up the stairs either, but I'm not talking about me, okay? But he has a young, beautiful deputy who is there in the form of Kamala Harris. What's the problem? What is the problem? I mean, and again, I'm just talking aesthetics. I'm not talking about what happens behind closed doors. So it's not. It's a global pandemic, to be honest with you. My time is up already, but I'm not ending. Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to get. Sorry, I'm just getting wrapping points quickly. So give us your final. I'm not even going to ask you a question because I think there's a few things that have been said.
Yes.
Linda, if you can quickly give us your sort of closing on this very important issue because it is exceptionally important.
Okay. Transformation is got to be a moral and business imperative. The heart needs to be in there, And I've watched, how Nedbank does it. At the heart of everything they do, they actually look and say, how are we transforming? How are we uplifting? How are we making a difference? Therefore, if we're dealing with an individual, how are we uplifting that individual? If it is a family, if it is a community, how are we actually transforming, that particular platform to ensure that there is bigger upliftment? But one thing I would like to actually encourage us in this room, right here, right now, can we all be self-appointed transformation champions?
Yeah.
That we've got. And for once in our lifetime, we don't even need an appointment letter to be that. We can just take a view right now that in my own right, I'm going to be a transformation champion. And therefore, accordingly, it will start with me. It will start with my team. I'm telling you, come next year when we gather in this room, we would have made so much difference.
Love it. Linda, thank you.
Thank you.
Sibongile?
Maybe just as a closing, I would say, let's be hard on ourselves in terms of getting there, getting the transformation that we need. But let's also be patient, because the change that we require, it's not as easy as we sometimes think it should be. Transformation is hard, and I think the more we start from that starting point, that we are embarking on something that seems right. Well, it doesn't seem right, it is right. It is sustainable for businesses, it's sustainable for society, but it's not easy. And therefore, we must be persistent and consistent in our efforts as we ensure that we get to where we need to get to. I mean, I look back at the topic today, the theme today is about Africa rising. And since in the early 20s, the theme of Africa is rising, Africa's time is now, it was everywhere at some point. Conferences upon conferences were looking at how do we take advantage of this new markets, African markets, and Africa being rising. But you don't see tangible things. But you look around in the room right now, today, and you look at African women's hair, and you see how many of African women are wearing their natural hair. They're not relaxing their hair. Absolutely. And you ask yourself, when did the change happen? When did it click? Where are the businesses that were providing us with the relaxers and all of that today? Are they still doing so well? I doubt it. So the change happens, whether we are conscious of it or not. But let's just be consistent in our efforts, and we will get there.
Love it. Great example. Really nice. Bonang, you've got the final word.
So to help these white male CEOs, we have to answer two things. The me factor and the fear factor. Because only when those are adequately addressed will they slowly open up to hand over power to people that don't look like them. Secondly, when you occupy spaces that ordinarily your own people don't, you really only have two choices, don't you? You could continue to be the only and the first and celebrated. Or you could be quite intentional in bringing people that look like you. So I think at the heart of it, let's not look up to anybody asking for permission, for empowerment, but let's liberate ourselves and build our own businesses. Because I think it's madness for us to continue to make babies and then send them to different neighborhoods for them to go down on their knees and ask somebody else for a job. Because a nation that makes English, not agriculture, compulsory, is condemned to produce citizens that speak English fluently on an empty stomach.
Yeah.
So we're leaving, we're ending, we finished. You know how you said you're an empowerment activist, whatever it is, empowerment? Champion.
Yes.
What is one thing, just one thing, simple, that every one of us in this room can do that will make a difference? Just one thing. What can we do?
Lift as you rise.
Lift someone with us?
Someone else as you rise.
Okay.
Make the door a little bit wider. Let more people come in. Embrace, cuddle, transform, move. Oh my gosh, I can go on.
But that's it. Make it wider. Take people up with you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All of our panelists, thank you so much for joining us. And it's such a